I've always just liked the idea of how words can make you feel things. Like they're so powerful. I've always felt like I need to encourage people. I wanted to bring something into the world that somebody could relate to, and then to kind of be like a guideline for someone, like if they were feeling lost, or if they felt beat by evil, or if they felt like under the weather, or for K-Trix to be that compass for like, well, hey, he got through it, so I can get through it too, kind of thing.
Do you love science fiction and fantasy books? You found yourself in the right dimension. Welcome to the greatest podcast in the multiverse, where each week I talk to science fiction and fantasy authors about myth, magic, and the infinite possibilities of storytelling. I'm your host, Herman Stuernagel, and I will be taking you on a journey with some of your favorite authors, helping you to get to know them and possibly uncover some new literary gems along the way. Ready to explore? Because on this show, every conversation is a doorway into a different world. So welcome again to the greatest podcast in the multiverse. I am so excited to have Ericka Evren here with me today. Welcome, Ericka.
Hi, thanks for having me, Herman.
You are very welcome. I'm always excited when I can have a fellow Canadian on the show. I know we kind of connected with each other through, I think it was Instagram when we initially found each other.
Yeah, through Instagram.
Yeah, so it's always fun. I know we're a couple provinces apart, but it's always nice to find another science fiction writer in Canada that I can chat with.
That's exactly what my feelings were. I was like, oh, he's Canadian. So,
and I know there's quite a few of us, but we don't always come out blazing that we're Canadian.
Out of the woodwork, right? It takes a while to find everybody.
It does, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, why don't you get us started and tell us a little bit about yourself and your writing journey?
Okay. So my name's Ericka Evren. I started writing when I was 13 years old. It was just like silly stories about like me and my dog and the adventures we go on. And then my dad started introducing us into science fiction. So like we started watching, obviously, the classic Star Wars, SG-1, Stargate SG-1, Atlantis, a whole bunch of other ones like Terminator. And I always just really liked it because he liked it, and it was really cool, and there was like no rules, and you could do anything you wanted, kind of. And so SG-1 was kind of like the basis of my writing. It was my inspiration because it was like, oh, it's Earth, but they're going to other planets through this device. That's so cool. Like, it didn't seem so complicated, like with spaceships and stuff. So I kind of started writing like a fan fiction of that with my own team and my own aliens and my own galaxy, because I knew I couldn't copy the Pegasus galaxy or the Milky Way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of started the growth and the inspiration for my writing. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I loved SG-1 as well growing up, and I think for me it was more Star Trek: The Next Generation is kind of what.
That one's good too.
That and got me into that one. So, but definitely Star Trek or Stargate as well. I never got into the Atlantis and that sort of thing. That was kind of, I haven't gotten that far. But, but I love the original SG-1.
Yeah, the original SG-1's really good. I actually just bought, and I think I convinced Sam Paisley too. I showed him. There's a Stargate SG-1 like DVD set, the whole 10 seasons. I was like, look what I found. He bought it too.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sure we have it on DVD somewhere, because I know my dad would have had it. But I find these days I can't be bothered to change the discs. So if it's not on a streaming service I don't watch it.
Yeah. I couldn't find it on a streaming service, so I was like, I have to have the physical, because if they ever take it off, or
Yeah, well, that's, it was on Netflix for a while, and I rewatched the first 2 or 3 seasons before, and then they took it off. So I don't know where it ended up. I haven't I'll have to look into it. I'm trying to catch up on Star Trek Picard right now. So once I get through the new Star Treks, then I'll
Jean-Luc Picard. Yeah, yes. I like him.
Have you seen the new ones?
With Chris Pine?
No, with Picard, like with the Next Gen cast.
No, I haven't. Yeah, I didn't even know they were doing that.
Yeah, they did. They just finished season 3. I think came out last year. I'm a bit slow to catch up on it, but yeah, they brought back Picard. The first 2 seasons were okay, but this third season is really good. So,
I didn't know that. Yeah, I've seen like bits and pieces of Star Trek, so I know, but I'm not like fully into it. But it would be really cool to go back and see. Yeah,
it is. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So you have one book out, Mission of the Roark.
Yeah,
Um,
I've got it right here. So cool. Ta-da!
yeah. So when did you start writing this book?
Ooh, so I hate using the word, but when COVID started, so March 2020, I believe it was, I work in childcare, so I couldn't go to my job until we kind of figured out like what the process was, what Alberta Health was going to tell us what to do, what the regulations were. So I was at home for 3 months and I was like, I've always wanted to write the beginning story of my character. So it was a perfect time to start and do that. So I just started, I had a goal of like writing the first draft in the first month because I was home all day. So I wanted to really put a good effort into my writing.
Right.
So I wrote every day and I finished the first draft within the first 30 days. But then it took me 2 years to kind of like finalize everything. So, but yeah, Mission of the Aurora came about because I've always had like my first character, but I needed like I was just kind of dropping people into the story, and I felt like it would be good to kind of give them some background on him to make them like, why do we care about Catrix? Why do we want to know like his journey? And so that's where kind of Mission of the Aurora came. It's kind of the beginning story of this character. So
Okay, very cool. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about him and the story in a bit. But
Mhm.
first, I want to talk about yourself as a writer and why writing is a part of who you are. What's the motivation behind your storytelling?
I've always just liked the idea of how words can make you feel things. Like they're so powerful, the way that you can string a sentence together. I've always felt like I need to encourage people or to, I don't know. It seems like there's been a lot of stuff out in the world lately that's been kind of like loosey goosey. Like, I don't know. I wanted to bring something into the world that was not like perfect, but somebody that somebody could relate to, and then to kind of have be like a guideline for someone, like if they were feeling lost, or if they felt beat by evil, or if they felt like under the weather, or for Catrix to be that compass for like, well, hey, he got through it, so I can get through it too, kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Just yeah.
Yeah, and had you been, I guess, kind of working on the story in the background before COVID hit, or did COVID hit and that? I mean, because that theme just sounds kind of inspirational through what a lot of people were going through during the pandemic. So did the story come about, I guess, as you were writing it, or did you have the idea set for a while already?
Yeah, I would definitely say the way our world was definitely was the inspiration for character Catrix's character and how the story came about. There was a lot to think about when that happened and how suddenly things shifted in our world. And I think as you'll find out in the story, like Catrix undergoes the same kind of thing where everything he knows is being questioned. And yeah, so it definitely did play a huge part in it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing to me how many writers that I've talked to who started writing, or at least decided to take it more seriously during COVID.
Yeah.
I think it kind of gave people a bit of a kick in the butt to sit down and do
Yeah.
something they've always wanted to, right?
Exactly. Like all this extra time on your hands. It's like, well, now I can do it.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. So you wrote the first book during lockdown.
Yep.
Your second, but you have a second book coming out soon.
Yeah.
Were you kind of writing that as you were editing the first book? What did your process look like for the second one?
So my second book is technically my first.
Okay.
That's the one I've been writing since I was 13. That was the original fanfic of Stargate SG-1, but it's completely like it's totally different. So don't don't think it's a team going off. But no, yeah, I've always been writing Echoes of Destiny. Of course, the names changed, the drafts changed so many times, but then I think as soon as I pegged down Catrix starting of his character in this first book, or Mission of the Roark, then Echoes of Destiny became more clear on what I wanted to have happen in the story. Because before I was a little bit, I didn't have enough information for myself for Catrix to work with, so I was kind of like a little bit lost. So writing Mission of the Roark really helped me finalize Echoes of Destiny and get that one published as well. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Cool. So then, how long were you working on Echoes of Destiny then? Like you say.
since I was 13.
Okay.
So, but like seriously, probably the last 9 years that I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to write this. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to write this. And then I don't think it was like 9 years, like finalizing the draft. But then I would say the like last 4 to 3 years, I was seriously like, okay, I have to get this together. Let's make these chapters like make sense and get a story together. And yeah, and I was torn between changing my technique between like doing the snowflake method and outlining and all this, but I'm more of a pantser slash gardener.
Okay. So you had the obviously you had the foundation for the story in place for Echoes of Destiny, and I'm always like amazed by. I just talked to Brian Wilson the other day, and
Yeah,
he was
he's
telling me
awesome.
how the Forsaken Planet. He's like it took him like 20 years to write. I'm like, you know
Yeah,
what? Like if I found a draft of something I wrote 20 years ago, I would like I don't think I would be
you
able
wouldn't?
to go through the process of making it good. Like because I'd
Oh,
probably read it and be like, what was I thinking?
or you could say this is gold.
Maybe. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. I take a look at my first book that I wrote 3 years ago, though, and I'm like, there's things I would
Uh,
do differently now. But
well, definitely with Mission of the Rourke, I look at it and I'm like, but I've had Arc Reader already reach out and say how much she's seen the growth since that first book. And I
awesome.
think it's just a natural process. Like,
It
whether it's
absolutely
your first
is.
draft, your last draft, your first book, your second book, like there's going to be
Yeah.
that
I
growth.
think,
So
yeah, and I firmly believe that getting that first book finished and hitting publish on it is the best learning experience you're going to have because
it really is.
you can only learn from it, and that's what I found at least. Like every book I publish, I feel like gets better than the last in a lot of ways. So you mentioned that you're a pantser or a gardener. How's that process look for you? Like, have you tried outlining and it just hasn't worked for you, or do you just kind of have to discover what happens along with the story?
Yeah, I've learned that the best way to not limit myself is to just go by the seat of my pants because I've tried outlining and figuring it out and I just feel overwhelmed and then I kind of stop writing for a while. But for Mission of the Rourke, I did do an inside outline because I had wrote by the seat of my pants, but there were scenes that weren't working. So I forget her name, but this lady had this method where you would go back and this happened because of this, and this is what's going to happen in the next scene. And I kind of did that for Mission of the Rourke, and that helped. And no, like when I'm writing for being a pantser, like I feel the emotions of the character more. I don't know what's going to happen, so it's exciting. And then I had one scene I wrote in Echoes of Destiny between the group, the captain and his crew and the kids. And it just kind of like happened. And it was really cool to see the conversation happen without me. And I was just trying to catch it all. Like it was such a cool moment. Yeah. So I really like that part. If I do ever feel stuck though for what I want to have happen in the next chapter, I'll do action beats of like, okay, I don't want this to happen. I want this to happen. And then I'll try and connect those things together while I'm writing. So yeah, some action beats kind of help, but mostly it's by the seat of my pants. So
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm similar. Like I'll plot out to a certain point,
yeah,
but I kind of feel like there has to be some room for organic growth in there, or just
for sure.
yeah, it feels like you're trying to fit something into this box, and the characters don't quite match up.
Yes.
But
And
I
I've,
don't. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, I've learned that a lot this year too. Be authentic to your characters. Like,
Hmm.
if that's the way they're going to come out, that's the way they have to come out. And in
Yeah,
Mission of the Rourke, one of my most memorable side characters is Mac because he's that crazy, wiry redhead that, he just, he's that Scottish, Irish kind of person that comes out. And I
yeah.
remember
Well,
him more than all the other side characters. So,
we'll circle back to him because why don't you tell us a little bit about the story itself? Just because it's a bit hard to talk around the
for
story here
sure.
without talking about what it actually is. So tell us about first, I guess, Mission of the Rourke
For
and the
sure.
series. Yeah.
So, Mission of the Rourke follows the story of a man's journey in the galaxy, like a different galaxy, obviously. So there's a caste system and all that, and he's just trying to work his way up to follow his dream. And what ends up happening is their technology is challenged by this threat, and he doesn't know where it's come from, and it's all about like, whoa, my gosh, and basically what happens is as he's recruited to go fight and as he's promoted he starts seeing things and questioning things of his own society that normally he wouldn't have questioned, or that he wouldn't have like thought that that was a problem. So as the battle continues and as things get like more dire, then he's like, okay, something else is happening that shouldn't be like, yeah. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell without giving away too many spoilers.
Okay.
But
Can you
yeah,
can you give us a hint of what's happening other without giving too much away, I guess?
so think of basically this society or this planet that has all the power, all the glory, and they're just falling to pieces like so quickly, and it shouldn't be happening. Like they should be able to be like, you know how a fortified kingdom has their walls. These guys' walls are just crumbling down, and they're like, what's happening? Like why is our alliance failing and all of this? So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I tried staying away from politics, but it just kind of worked its way in there.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about, I guess, a society, especially one that might be fracturing, or you kind of have to get a little bit into it, without
You do,
maybe, yeah,
for it to make sense to the reader, right?
exactly, yeah, and it may not be necessarily have to be heavy-handed,
Yes,
but there's going to be
some elements there.
elements there, exactly.
Yeah. And I did enjoy writing some of those scenes because it developed K-Trix's character, and it also it just showed a little bit more about his society too, and like his people and where he come from. So it was necessary for the book.
You told us a little bit, I guess, about the universe, but can you tell us about the universe and how you put it together and what kind of sets it apart?
Well, it's kind of hard because I did draw a lot of inspiration from Star Trek, Star Wars, all that.
Yeah.
What sets it apart is not all of the races are like super advanced. There's like planets that are kind of like your Western town where they're trading goods and services and stuff. They don't have the means to travel, but because of a device that my elite race made, the Arcross, they can travel through that to other worlds and like exchange technology and stuff. So that's one thing that sets it apart.
Okay. How did you structure the universe? How are the planets kind of set up and that sort of thing?
A lot of my inspiration for my races and stuff, they come from things that I like. So I do have a race that their planet is completely like glow in the dark because I love glow in the dark stuff. So that's one kind of inspiration and what sets some things apart. And it's just kind of like a big conglomerate of things that I like in our current world. And then I've kind of like melded some things together to make them different or special. Yeah.
So, and then how about Echoes of Destiny? What can you tell us about Echoes of Destiny without getting into spoilers? I know it's sometimes hard to talk about book 2 without spoiling book 1, but
well, I can say that it follows K-Trix's journey again. So I know I left it on cliffhanger in book 1, but we still follow K-Trix's journey in the second book, and we get a deeper, darker look into the enemy and what their true agenda is for the whole galaxy. But there's also more friendships, found family, and we follow his journey, like connecting with this group of misfits and then figuring out like what's the next step now that he's kind of back. So, and then it ends on that kind of note for book 2. So
nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And how was it revisiting? Because I know you said you wrote Echoes of Destiny first, but you kind of edited and published it after. How was it revisiting it after you developed the character of K-Trix, publishing Mission of the Roark?
Yeah, it was very enlightening, and I had a lot more meat and potatoes to go on the plate, so to speak, when I was writing him. So when I was going over Echoes of Destiny again, I was like, oh yeah, that happened, and now I can put that in here. Or like, especially because Echoes of Destiny, it's kind of like a born identity where he's been asleep for so long that he's forgotten like who he was. So there's trickles of information coming back. So having his character fleshed out in Mission of the Roark, I was able to trickle some of those small details into his character into book 2. So yeah, it really helped.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so does Echoes of Destiny happen before or after Mission of the Roark?
It happens after.
It does happen after. Okay, even though it was the first book written. So it is a book 2.
It is a
does it continue the story of Mission of the Roark, or is it a separate story?
It continues the story, yeah. So we leave off with Catrix's character in book one, and then it picks back up with him in the second one, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So tell us a little bit more about Catrix. You got to know him a bit more as you were writing and exploring these two books.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the idea for him originally, though? And what's the motivation behind what he does?
So Catrix was originally I had two male characters in my like original drafts, but I was finding too much conflict between like having both of them. They were both stealing the spotlight. So I decided to like smash them together,
Okay.
and that came about as Catrix. So a lot of inspiration for Catrix was I would say a little bit about myself, a little bit of my dad. There's definitely some Jack O'Neill in there. And what I like his journey and what I want him to do for readers is like he's very much like a child where he was naive and blind to the fact of what was happening around him in his society. And we all have that like childlike naivety to us at first. And then as you get wise and you kind of learn things, you kind of get kind of not cold hearted, but like more sure of yourself. And I feel like he's a good character to relate to because he does go through this journey of like he's discovering who he is, and he's got a temper which I didn't know he had at first, but it came out in a couple scenes where he's like really angry with the way the councils decided to do things, and it's like, no, this is not how we are as a race. This is not right. But he's kind of powerless to do anything. So yeah, that anger, that righteous anger, I guess you could say, comes out in him. And I don't know, he just kind of wrote himself. I had some bits and pieces, and then he kind of came through the woodwork, and I'm really fond of him, actually. He's a good guy.
Yeah, nice. And so did
Yeah.
you find that his, motivation necessarily had to change from book one to book two? Like, does who he developed and became in book one, did that really influence and change his decisions for book two?
Yes. So for book one, he definitely is a different character, and then book two, it's almost like he's trying to get back on his feet, where he's like, okay, what happened? Why is this going on? Like, why is the world so different that I woke up in compared to like what it was when I left? And he's got to piece all these details together. So it's kind of rediscovering. Catrix is like rediscovering who he is through this world that's changed so many years after what's happened in Mission of the Roark.
Oh, okay. So how long after book one does book two happen? Or is that a spoiler?
It's not a spoiler because it's inevitable. They got to know how he lives. I believe it was 68 years, or I call them rotations in my book. I was trying to keep it as far away from Earth because one of our days is not going to be like one of my days, but so I call them rotations, or solar rotations, I guess, because it goes around the sun. So.
Yeah, and I did hear you mention in another interview that it's not an Earth-based society. Like
it's
they didn't
not.
originate on Earth. Yeah, and so what was the motivation, I guess, for not having an Earth history in the story?
I didn't want to bring all the baggage. I didn't want to like have to explain or do all that research on like, maybe China got to space first, or was it the Russians or, the US? And I just really wanted to focus more on the story and the characters rather than the how. It's easier for me to write in a world where you just accept it for how it is rather than questioning like, well, how is that possible? If you tie it to Earth. Like I found it was easier for myself it gave me more liberty and more creativity to start completely brand new with a fresh plate than it would be to say if I had brought Earth along. I don't know. It was easier for me that way. I might make a sci-fi with Earth involved. It might be easier for technology and stuff wise, but no, that was basically the reasoning. I just wanted a fresh start, and then to people just to be dropped into this galaxy without like trying to explain why Earth is doing what it's doing, or however you want to tie that in. Like
Yeah,
Like
right.
I love what you did with yours. Like it's really interesting. Um, but that's just not the direction I wanted to take for at least for these first couple books for myself. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, there's definitely several different ways that authors approach it. Either they kind of ignore it altogether, or they like you did, you started fresh. I've been reading John Scalzi's Collapsing Empire series. Like Earth was part of their network, but it got separated, kind of thing.
okay,
So yeah, so there's different ways that authors do it, and I always find that interesting, and kind of the
yeah,
reasoning behind why and how
yeah.
they set it up, right?
That's
Yeah,
a really nice creative break, actually. And I don't think myself I could process how I could do it, like creatively enough without it coming across cool and new and authentic. So
yeah, it's fascinating how yeah, different authors approach things different ways. And like you were saying with my series, yeah, like I my series came about from a dystopian writing contest. Like I started
right,
out as a short story,
that's
and
cool.
yeah, so like kind of the nature of dystopia is kind of set like on an Earth, possible
Yes,
Earth future. So it kind of had to incorporate our system
our
as
world.
well. So yeah, and
Do you
my
think?
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you think you'll ever write something that's like in a different galaxy or in a different world? Like,
I think so. I definitely think um, there's not a lot of space opera out there that doesn't venture out into different worlds, because I think that's part of what people
space
love about
opera?
space opera, right?
Yeah,
I know like Red Rising kind of sticks to our solar system, and The Expanse does, at least initially. Um, so, but there aren't a lot of comparables. Like I was having a tough time finding comparables to
me
my
too.
books that
It's like, what is it like?
yeah, right. So
Yeah,
I stick with Red Rising as a comparable, just a lot because it's the solar system empire. I don't know if you've read Red Rising or not.
love it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, it's one of
So
my
excited for the
favorites.
next one.
Yeah. So, but I mean, of course, there's a lot of empire and world building in Red Rising that my series doesn't do. So it's not even a true comparison. Um,
Right, but it's
but
light in
but
that
it's
sense. It's still in the same universe.
exactly, it's
Yeah. Okay.
dystopia in space, and it's within our solar system. So that's kind of
Right. Oh,
yeah,
I like
but
that. That's good.
yeah, yeah. So, but it's great to hear, yeah, different authors' processes of why they develop their universe the way they do.
Yeah, yeah, it's really
Yeah.
cool. I like the questions you had lined up there. I was like, oh, these are great.
Cool. And then, yeah, so just I guess what can readers expect as they read your books, and what kind of emotional impact do you want to have on your reader?
So it would help if you read book one first. I think you'll be more invested in character's journey or Catrix's journey. Um, but it's a lot. It's got some dark themes in it. Just because you can't have great good without great evil. So I feel like our hero wouldn't be much of a hero if he didn't have that kind of evil to face. But emotional journey, there's definitely some humor. There's a lot of connectivity between the family there on the spaceship. One character in particular, he's like not he's trying to recover from some trauma, but he's struggling with that a bit, especially when Catrix's character comes around. Um, and then there is question of loyalty and friendship, and there's betrayal, and there's a whole woodwork of like emotions in there. But yeah, it definitely goes up and down. There's not. I would say it's definitely like a Star Wars reading for anybody who wants to read it. Like if you have kids that want to read it, it's
Okay.
definitely a little bit more detailed and a little bit more. I wouldn't say violent, but it can get detailed. So
Okay.
I would say like Red Rising detailed, not as detailed as his, but definitely in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm Red Rising. It definitely gets darker as you go through the series too.
Yeah,
So,
I
and
had to
there's
take
a
a couple breaks.
yeah, yeah, and I actually yeah, not to get sidetracked by Red Rising
I know it's so easy to
the
talk
entire
about.
episode. Yeah, I haven't I haven't finished this what he's put out yet. I need to continue with it. I know. I'm actually horrible at finishing book series.
Oh, really?
It is my when they talk about reader like flaws or icks or whatever. Like I read book ones, and then
Yeah.
like I get distracted by something else. I'm
Another
horrible
book
for
one.
completing series. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even so my favorite series, well, Red Rising is one of my favorite series, and I haven't finished what he put out. Wheel of Time. I'm finally working on the last book of Wheel of Time. It's one of my favorite series, and I mean, I've been reading it for 20 years, and I still haven't finished it.
Oh, I haven't
So,
read that series actually,
oh,
so
it's so good.
you're ahead of me.
Yeah, it's so good. But yeah, like I'll start, like I said, I started a series and like never get to the second book, even though I love it.
Aw.
So yeah,
I think Red Rising is the first series that I started and finished. Like I'm so bad at reading now. Like I read
Hmm.
lots when I was little, but then I kind of
Yeah,
lost it when I started like adult journey with life and work and stuff.
totally.
So I'm trying to get back into reading more, but yeah, Red
Yeah,
Rising was the first series that I started and finished. So
yeah. I'm the same with reading too. Like it takes me a while to read stuff, and I always wonder how. I mean, especially if you follow, Bookstagram and BookTube and all that. Everyone's like
oh,
reading 100 books a year, and that
like Joshua, it's like
I know. Like, I know, and I mean, I'm trying to write. Like, I mean, my free thinking time goes to writing, and so by the
yeah,
time I've done, my day job and writing, I'm like, like my brain isn't. If I can read an
yeah,
hour before I fall asleep at night, like I'm doing good.
yes,
But
exactly.
yeah,
I find too if I try and read before bed, like I'm reading a page and I gotta reread and go back because I'm falling asleep.
yes, exactly,
Uh,
exactly. So this year I found audiobooks has helped me quite a bit. I've been able to listen,
oh,
like, kind of my commute to and from my office space, but.
oh,
Um,
that's nice.
Yeah, but when I'm working from home for the winter, so that kind of cuts out my audiobook listening time
Oh
a little
no.
bit. But yeah, but
Yeah.
but I did actually find that help this past year. Yeah.
Hmm.
So what can readers expect from you next? What are you working on? The next book in the series? What kind of other projects do you have going on?
Yeah, so there's definitely a book three, and I would love a book four, but book three, I have a beginning and an end and
Okay.
some middle parts. I haven't drafted it. I'm still thinking out scenes and what I want to have next happen for him, and the characters now that are all in book two and how I want their stories to continue. So I'm still processing and thinking about what could come next. I am writing a side story though. I started it in 2022 for one of the side characters in Echoes of Destiny, and it's just a kind of like a starting point for her character. And so I'm hoping to have that published this year. I wanted it to be a magnet for my newsletter, but I might just
Hmm.
publish it, and because I think it's going to be a large book. I don't know. We'll see. It might be smaller. But I'm working on that currently, and then yeah, I'm trying to work on like my first draft of book three titles. Still not decided. So
Hmm.
I've been really distracted this month with like obviously getting Echoes of Destiny launched February 29th, and getting my arcs out to some readers and some thank you books to my beta reader.
Yes.
And yeah, so I really pushed myself hard November, December, and I feel like all of January has just kind of been like a lazy author month.
You need that
So
too, though. You need to take those
yeah,
breaks, especially. I mean, launching a book is a lot of work. So
it is, yes. And
yeah,
then like just the final file editing and like uploading and formatting. And I was doing all that through Christmas because it has to be done before.
yeah, right.
Like I didn't want to meet that deadline and not be ready. Like that's my worst fear ever. And that's so
Right.
stressful. So
Yes, I hear you there. My last book was right to the wire when
oh
getting
my
it
gosh.
uploaded and that sort of thing. It was pretty stressful. I'm not doing that again. So
So did you set up the publishing date and then like
yeah,
write
I
it?
set it up. I was writing it when I set it up, but I there was just a lot of delays. I had figured I was going to have it done a lot sooner than I did,
Okay.
and it just there was a lot of delays in that process. So by the time I got to and I rewrote a good chunk of it as well
Yeah.
was kind
Yeah.
of the bigger thing because something happened and I realized it had to go a different direction. So I went back and I rewrote something like 30,000 words.
Oh
And yeah,
wow.
I know.
That's a
Yeah,
lot.
it was. Yeah. And then, yeah, there were editing delays and all sorts of things. So and I made the mistake of trying to publish books two and three back to back. Um,
Uh-huh.
and that, I don't know why in my head I thought that was a good idea. Partially because I thought I'd have everything done far in advance, but I wasn't
Right.
able to give. give either book kind of the marketing push that they needed.
Okay.
So definitely give yourself a lot of time when you're to those listening who are wondering when they should hit that publish button. Give yourself time to market and publish, because that takes a lot of time as well.
Right.
Echoes of Destiny, when does it come out?
It comes out February 29th, 2024. So this February. I realized I put it on like the leap year day.
That's great.
So
although your book anniversary will come every 4 years.
Exactly. It's like, oh wow.
Yeah,
that's okay. There'll be a couple of days for this bad boy. The paperback, obviously I had to publish it already, so if you don't want to wait for the ebook, they can get the paperback. It's a little bit thicker than Echoes of Death or Mission of the Rorok, so
yeah, and your covers look really good. I've always liked it.
Yeah, this one she was from Italy. It was actually a pre-made, so I got really lucky with that one. I've had so many compliments.
Yeah, cool.
And then this one was that Ukrainian company, Miblard.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
so
they've done some of mine too. Yeah, I'm impressed that they. Yeah, and even that you had two. I would never have guessed that you had two different cover artists.
Oh, really?
Because they look like that. They look like they're part of the same series. So that's great.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, that's what I was going for.
That's awesome. So, Ericka, this is the greatest podcast in the multiverse. So, can you tell us about how, in a parallel universe, another decision might have shaped a different version of your life?
So that's a good one. My parents actually split when I was 11. And there was a time there when I thought I would be living with her. And she is not as creatively supportive as my dad. My dad's been my number one backer. He always believes in me. He's reading my stuff, always wants to talk about it. Like, what's next? And are you doing audiobooks? And let's do sound effects for it. And so I think when I was 11, 12, if I hadn't had that clarity from God to decide to go live with my dad, I don't think I would be writing or where I am at today, for sure.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. And one of those, I mean, obviously, I don't know how much, say you had in that decision, but something that could have, definitely taken you a different direction.
Yeah. So thankfully, my parents weren't it wasn't too, we're going to go to court and fight. But it was definitely like, okay, kids, we were doing a 1 week with mom and 1 week with dad. And it was really draining on us kids because you're changing your environment. You're just getting settled in, then you're yanked out. So just over those 3 months, we could definitely tell that, dad didn't have much, but he really loved us and he was really present, and he wasn't being negative in any way. Mm-hmm. And it was totally opposite when we were with my mom. She was trying to show us off to her friends and let's go here, but we go somewhere else. And I was like, oh, as a young kid, we don't give kids enough credit, but they're really smart. They can see and sense things. So
totally.
So that would have been the defining. Yeah. If I had followed my emotions and went to live with my mom, that mm-hmm. would have been, I wouldn't be where I am today. So
yeah. Wow.
A little deep, but
no, hey, that's it's the reality of the question, right? I mean, sometimes those decisions are not. They're difficult decisions, and they are life-changing decisions for a reason, and they are things that it's part of life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, Ericka, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Ericka Evren Author. You can also find me on my website, www.erickaevren.com. You can find my books on Amazon, Kobo, and Barnes & Noble. They should be up for pre-order, the ebooks. And Amazon's the only place you can get the paperback currently. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, Ericka.
Yeah, thank you, Herman. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, it has been, and I'm sure we will chat again here soon.
Yes, awesome. Thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the show, like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Greatest Podcast in the Multiverse. As well, you can help support the show by supporting me on Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can get early access to the show, as well as submit your questions for my upcoming guests. I hope to see you next time. Bye now.